His topic tonight is happiness, and I can think of very few people who are better qualified than Manuel to come out and to be happy with us and show us how to connect with that happiness. So let's give him a very warm welcome, okay?
So, good evening. So I would like to share with you my way, personal way, which means that may not work for you, so I only can talk about myself, my personal way, my insight to happiness. When my mother was pregnant with me, that was 1946, no one was allowed to know because she was 18 years old. So for example, when she was in the 7th month pregnant, she tried to escape and she went to a lake, the lake in Lucerne in Switzerland, and she tried to kill herself. I met my real mother only when I was 38, which means I didn't know anything. The only thing what I found out then, for example, is between when I can remember 4 years old and until 12, I would refuse to go in a swimming pool or in a lake, but I didn't know why, which only shows you that already there in the belly things go on, you have a certain awareness. As soon I was born, I was put in a home because no one was allowed to know, so literally from the hospital into the home. Now I don't remember the first 2 years when we go into the inside of happiness, but I remember from about 3 years on. The first thing I remember that every day we were chained in the beds. What I remember is that we were every day beaten up. What I remember is that at night sometimes one of the nurses would come with a knife and say, if you don't behave the next day, we will kill you. What I remember is when I came out of the home with 6, I got lunch, spinach, potatoes, and an egg, and I had never seen that before. So what it means is from 3 years on, as I remember until I got out of the home, I was then adopted at 6, the home was an absolute nightmare. And still already then, and that's what I want first to talk about, already then I started to develop an insight of happiness. It took me very long then to put it in words, and the new book, Bitten by the Black Snake, which in German is called the Tao of Happiness, shows everything which went on there, but on the psychological level. And one of the first things which I realized then was, maybe to a certain degree, psychology is wrong. In the saying that if you come in a home, if you are beaten up, if you don't get food, if you are tortured, if you are chained every day, I should be a criminal. What happened that I didn't become a criminal? The first thing was 3 years old. What do you do when you are in bed chained and someone comes with a knife? What do you do when you are in bed chained and people come and tell you, beat you up, and you have no chance to defend yourself? What do you do if you don't get food? And if you get food, only some little, even sometimes they put us some, in Switzerland it's called Birchermüsli. Muesli, and in it they put nails. So the first thing I learned, that's why I'm very grateful to the home, the first thing I learned with 3 years old is either you start to fight, and as a 3 years old your fight is going to be a nightmare and you get mad, or you go another way. And I learned very fast, if I would not react, absolutely no defense, no resistance, nothing could happen to me. Chained in the bed, you couldn't even sleep on the side. You had to sleep like that. And I realized if I do absolutely no reaction, no resistance whatsoever, another part in me started to wake up. A part which was not frightened by the mind, by what was coming towards me. A part which is not conscious on the brain level. So the first thing I realized, hey, whatever they do, if I do not get in a fight, in a resistance, they cannot really hurt me. Even if they beat you up, they cannot really hurt you. So that was the first thing I realized. No reaction, no resistance. I will explain you later what that has for impact towards and for happiness. Then, being still there every day, these kind of things, slowly I realized, because we had then all the small other kids, and as older you get, the more you try to defend the smaller kids, I suddenly started to realize when there was an attack and you do not react, there is absolutely no resistance, suddenly you feel like not being in your body. In psychiatric term, they would call that a split dissociation. In spiritual turn, and I prefer to take the spiritual turn, in spiritual turn it means you start to realize that there is more than the body-mind. I was this summer, let me give you an example of that, how the mind has difficult to deal with that. This summer I was giving a course about consciousness together with the representative of the Dalai Lama of Germany. So we two together had a huge crowd of people, which for 2 days we were trying to get them to understand what consciousness is. So I was talking about that experience that when you do not focus, resist, which means resistance means you have to be on the body-mind level, that suddenly you are on a part which is like another body, an out-of-the-body experience. So then the president of the Young Society of Europe stood up, psychiater, well-known psychiater, and he said, "This is the biggest rubbish I have ever heard. I understand from your biography why you have this problem. What happened is you just dissociated that you don't have to feel." And then the president of the Psychiatric Society of Germany stood up, a woman, and she said, "I agree with him. This is really the most stupid thing I have ever heard, that if you have no resistance, if you don't react, then you are suddenly in another space. This is pure psychiatric thing." Then the Rinpoche stood up and said, "I am very sorry, but now we have to stop with this. Buddha said, everybody has Buddha nature. Everybody is a Buddha. So therefore, he is right, you are wrong." And of course it's like that. What did I do as a 3-year-old boy? Being there, chained. I didn't say, "Oh, now I make meditation," but that was nothing else than meditation. What is meditation? The absolute not reacting to whatever is there, observation. No one told me, or reading books or a guru. Just because you had no other chance, no resistance, out of the body, observation. Can you imagine that when you are not in the body-mind structure, that your observation is increasing, enlarging? It's like if you suddenly go up a stair, you see more. So the little boy just moving out of the body, not dissociation, that's a brain business. Real out of the body means you are connecting to that part of your consciousness, of your energy system, which will do the same when you die. When you die, are you going to tell to everybody who is dying you are psychiatric dissociation? Are you telling to everybody who is dying you are now schizophrenic? Of course not. So, you suddenly realize, if you observe, if you don't interfere, the next step, you see more what's going on. And then something dramatic happened. I remember very well, it was about 4 years old. In the morning, one of the nurses comes in. I look at her, and I see around her whatever, you don't have words and say this is an aura or this is a magnetic field or whatever. You just see around her a picture. The picture was, I remember very clearly, her husband beating her up. In the picture I saw that has happened the night before. And from 1 second to the other, I realized the woman is not against me. The woman is not violent towards me because of me. She is violent, aggressive, because she is unhappy from what has happened to her. How can you then still blame her? How can you then still say, I have to fight against her? If you see her aggression is nothing else than her misery. Do you believe that if we all would happy, we would have aggression? Isn't the absence of that happiness, which I describe a little later, precisely the outcome of it, aggression? You all know that. When you feel not good, which means you are also more tense, therefore more on the body, therefore more in thinking. Thinking is always the past. You can never think in the now. What do? You acted towards the outside. Hardly no one, when they feel not good, just observe it. They act it out. The society, the mother, the father, the whatever is responsible. The TV, a bad program. England who doesn't win. You can put it all out there. But when you are a little child and you have absolutely no possibility to defend, you even stop putting it out there. And then when you see that this person, and then you start to see it in other people, that all the way they act, their motivation to act, has absolutely nothing to do with you. It has to do with their situation, but you are just in the way. There's nothing left than compassion. And you see, this is one of the dramatic things which I try 10 years at university, everywhere where I go and talk, to explain that their psychology made a huge mistake. A child is not, and I will give you an example, a child is not suffering because the father or the mother treats it wrong. A child is suffering because it realizes the motivation of the bad treatment. Let me give you an example. Why instead of everything which is going on, all the misery in this world, all the horror in this world, there is constantly, like water, who never gives up, this pushing of love? Why does people who have had a terrible childhood still have a possibility or a structure of love? Why does someone who had a terrible time suffer? Because we know from modern science that every little baby already knows the sensation of compassion. Let's break compassion down on a psychological level. It's empathy. The first step of compassion is empathy. Empathy is the ability to see in someone else what they feel, to read their actions, their mind. Every baby has that already. Now you have a child who is 4 or 5 years old. You have a father or a mother, it doesn't matter who comes in, and for whatever reason beats the child up. And if you go now just in yourself, in your childhood, have a look at it. What is really happening? Does the child really react to the beating? Or if this compassion, empathy is already built in, does it react to the problem of the mother, that the mother behaves like that? Imagine, let me give a very simple picture. Imagine you are 3, 4 years old. You all have gone through that phase. Imagine for whatever reason your mother feels very unhappy. I said before, whenever you feel unhappy, we have a tendency to act with aggression towards the outside. Your mother feels unhappy. She will say later that she is overloaded, that's why she got nervous. Now you do something which the mother doesn't like. The mother hits you. You, with your empathy as a small child, without that you can rationalize it, you just see the problem of the mother, her misery. Empathy means you feel her misery. Now she beats you. It's not the beating which has hurted you, it's seeing that you have no chance to help your mother to get out of the misery. You all know that. Have you been in hospitals? Or have you had someone who had heavy pain? Let's talk only about body pain. Haven't you reacted like if the pain was strong, you would feel it yourself? If you have loved the person, you even thought it would be better to be in their position and that they have not anymore the pain. That's precisely what you all went through when you were little kids. The only difference, I was lucky that I couldn't escape. I had to stay in the structure. You were lucky you could escape. But how did you escape, which I couldn't do? What are you doing as a 4-year-old if you see how people are suffering and therefore behave towards you in a certain way? How much does it hurt to see that your father, for example, sexually misuses you? Because you feel inside, you see, that's the reason why a lot of little children who are sexually misused don't come forward and say to the mother it has happened, because they cannot make the distinction what has happened through their feeling of empathy for the father and what is good or what is not good. So, you see your mother suffering. That hurts. You are 4 years old. What are you going to do? You don't know what